Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back to the Brenton on Tour podcast, the first edition for 2020. We continue the music series. Dave Palmer, drummer extraordinaire from Rod Stewart, and many, many others, which you'll learn. His tour manager, Ben Melman. What's it like tour managing a guy like Dave and Kevin and some of these people that have been playing with Rod forever, have been touring the world for 25, 30 years and beyond. So we're going to get into that. Dave's going to tell us a bit about his history, growing up in the UK, some of the bands he played with. It's a great story. We did it in Liverpool, home of the Beatles. So it just seemed appropriate and perfect to get into it. Thanks for all of your help in 2019, liking and sharing. We peaked at number 3 on Apple for people and places. So I like being in the top 10, and it's all thanks to you. So thanks for your help. Brought to you by my friends at Varia Brewing. It's a 3-in-1 coffee maker. I've got one just sent to me. I'm testing it out this week, and then I'm going to send you, one in the mail. So like, share, do what you do. Let's get it out there, friends. The Brenton on Tour podcast has returned with Dave Palmer and Ben Melman. Here we go.
Let's rock today. Out on stage, I get to bring all of these people together for 3 hours.
You're listening to the Brenton on Tour Music Cast, brought to you by people who love music, people who make music, and all things, well, music. You still don't really know who he is, but he just helped you stop drinking shitty coffee on the Coffee Cast. So, get off the John, grab a ghetto blaster, hit record and play at the same time, and learn a thing or two about music. It's the Brenton on Tour Music Cast. Here's BD.
I am joined in Liverpool with the very awesome Dave Palmer. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Brent. Yeah, I'm really pretty happy. Yeah, we're in the Titanic Hotel,
Titanic Hotel.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
The Titanic
great
was
city.
Built here. There's sort of like it was built here and then it was shipped away.
Yeah, and then shipped to Belfast, I think. It was like, that was the, but it seems like it was all, all put together here, I think,
We're also joined by your tour manager, Mr. Ben Melman. How you doing, sir?
Great. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're just hanging out. We're going to have a little drum and touring and touring in 2019 chat. And I thank you, gentlemen, both for your time. The Music Cast is into the new year. It's 2020. And the world of touring has changed over the last couple of years. I've had the benefit of being out with some great musicians, players, tour managers over the last couple of years. So I want to touch on a whole bunch of different things, a bit of history, Dave, with Rod Stewart and just in England. And Ben, I thought I'd bring you in as a co-host here because you've been with Dave for a long time, and we can talk a little bit about the history of touring with this band, how much fun it's been for you and all the rest of it, and a bit of where you think touring's going in 2020 and beyond. So here we are. We're just kind of hanging out. We're going to have a little chat. So let's get for our listeners around the world, and here we are. Give us a little lowdown of Dave Palmer. He grew up, 60 miles from here? Where?
Yes, Chesterfield, Derbyshire. I'm a Derby guy, I suppose my musical history started in 1981, 82. I joined this band called ABC. And we had an album out called Lexicon of Love, what was produced by Trevor Horn, and it had a couple of big singles on it, Poison Arrow, Look of Love, and stuff like that. And so that started me. I was 17 and a half when I joined that band, and that started me on my professional career. I ended up touring America in 1983, and it was, amazing. And then after that, I kind of came back and ended up doing some touring in Japan with the Yellow Magic Orchestra and Ryuichi Sakamoto and people like that. In 85, I ended up doing work with Paul Young, and Pino Palladino got me that gig. I ended up touring with him for 2 years. We supported Genesis on their big tour, and that was a great tour. And then
Which tour? That was 85, Genesis?
It was the big 80. We played Giant Stadium and all the big. It was the big stadium tour. It was the Invisible Touch tour. That one, that bit. It was pretty impressive actually. I'd never seen I mean, I'd never played to that amount of people before. I mean, it was 75,000 people every night they were playing to, you know.
You were playing with Paul then.
We were supporting them. So
Paul
Young was supporting them. And so, unfortunately, as the people were walking in, we were playing, you know, and it was still light when we were hitting the stage, you know. But it was a great tour. And then I ended up joining this band called the Matt Johnson, and I did 4 records with Matt from 86 to really 93. I did most of his albums. I was on tour with and we were playing Ross Gilder, and I get a call in the production office, and it's a call from Bernard Edwards from Chic, and he was producing Rod's new record. He'd just done Out of Order with him, so it was Andy Taylor, and I'd done a lot of work with Andy, and Bernard was producing. I'd done a lot of Andy's solo albums, and he says, look, Rod's looking for a drummer, and this is obviously before cell phones. This is like 1990, you know, it's like there's no cell phones, or 1990, and so, you know, it's like I get a call and he says, hey, when can you get out here? And I'm going, where? He goes, LA. He goes, he's looking for a drummer. I said, well, I can't. The tour finishes in 3 weeks. He goes, oh, well, get your ass out here then. And I kind of bought a plane ticket and came out to LA, and I did an audition at Cherokee Studios on Fairfax. So I came in, and Rod, this was all the musicians were all set up there, you know, and I walked in. And I think Rod showed up. I walked in about 12 o'clock. Rod showed up at about 4. We played about 3 or 4 songs. Then we went over to this place called Genghis Cohen and just got completely hammered. And then right at the end of the night, he goes, hey, you know, you've got the gig. You know, so that was my audition, and it was kind of like the rest has been history, really. So I've been here really since 1990, you know. Yeah.
Rod was coming out of some pretty big songs out of the 80s.
Yeah, he was coming out those big records. It was the Out of Order record, the Forever Young, Lost in You, you know, it was that right after that. I did the follow-up record to that, which was called Vagabond Heart, and that's how I started. So I started playing with him, recording with him, then obviously touring.
The scene around here, Derbyshire, like growing up, and then coming through with ABC, what's the exposure like? How are you breaking? Are you breaking on radio?
Yeah,
videos were kind of a thing then.
Yeah.
I mean, Ben, you guys had MTV in America and all the rest of it, and that's how we would have saw. In Canada we had Much Music. I don't know, is that where you got your videos from in America? How did you find music back then?
Well, I was of the generation where I was really being introduced to music. I was too young for music videos on MTV, and all the music was really coming from terrestrial radio, and blogs were becoming a thing. And what were the most popular tracks being downloaded on Napster and LimeWire was really where it started, you know, where I found my music, and then the power of iTunes.
So then you take it back to how you guys have to break it, or how to break through. How does one come through? How does one break through?
We were
back then. What year is this? This is
the plan at that time for most acts in the 80s, early 80s, was that you recorded a record, or you went in and you recorded 3 singles. So ABC, what we did is we went in and we recorded the first single first, and then released it. And then all of a sudden it's like, fuck, oh, now we've got to do a record. You know, now we've got to get the record together, because the single really took off, and it kind of like it surprised everybody at how well it did. So we released 3 singles in England, then came the album. In America, it was just the album, you know, which got released. Which we were on Phonogram in England, and we were on Polygram in America. So it's like, and that's America just released the record, so we just did a tour on the back of the record, you know.
And that's got to be, you got to do that with a video. You got to get on.
Everyone's
got to, at that time, everyone's got to be
everybody
on TV.
Actually, you had to have we did our first video with Julian Temple, who did the great Rock and Roll Swindle. He did the great, he did that amazing documentary on Joe Strummer as well, which is really worth watching. And yeah, he did our first video.
What was the difference between the demand here in the UK compared to the States? Was the difference enormous?
Yeah, I would say in Europe in general. I know that the album outsold definitely here and Europe than America. I mean, the album was made to look like it was selling like insane amounts, but in actual fact, I think someone said that we only actually sold, I think, and I mean, this is 80s as well. I think we sold only 300,000 albums.
Well, only is a lot. And how many bands would kill to sell 10% of that now?
Yeah. We sold, I think the album went 3 million in Europe alone. 3 million album records were sold. So it was very, very big, very popular in Europe, America, we found out they couldn't, because it was so, okay, this is what I found out. It wasn't rock, so it wasn't played on a rock station, but what it was played on was believe it or not, R&B, black R&B stations. So we did Soul Train. We played, we appealed to more that sort of crowd, or that kind of, and it became apparent, trust me, when we started, we toured, we played LA, we played Chicago, we played Miami, and we played all those places. Then we played Austin, Texas, and it was like, wait a second, why are we going on before, what's this other band? And we found out we were a support band for like some covers, Van Halen or something like that band. I mean, that's how small we were in those places. But we did the gig, but it was we weren't that popular, and
How does a Van Halen cover band treat ABC from the UK, and you guys walk in and you're like, what do you mean they sold 300,000 records?
Yeah, check this out. It was a 16-piece band. We had a 6-piece orchestra with us as well. We had a string section. It was like insane. I mean, it was unbelievable.
What was your gig in Austin?
It was like this small club, but all I remember was chicken wire being around the stage. And I'm going, what is that chicken wire for? And it's because it's to stop. They throw shit at you if you're not good. They had a fucking chicken wire around the stage. I kid you not.
So you have your current tour manager, Ben, here. We're hanging out in Liverpool. It's the day off. We're chilling. Everyone's recovering from being sick. Define the role of the tour manager then.
Yeah.
When you've sold 300,000 records, you're touring all these people around the world. You got an orchestra, and then you go in and you do a gig with the chicken wire, and it's a small, and you're open, and there's like a Van Halen cover band. Versus what you think Ben has to go through now. Because there's a drastic difference between the two.
Chime in. I would refuse to have done it back then without technology and hearing stories from Dave's past. That got me out.
That's when they sent Ravens to send your rider. But anyway, so, obviously you've had many tour managers over the years, but like, are you like, oh, you're so lucky, Ben? You're so, what's it like back then?
Oh,
the circus or what?
No, it was a circus, but it was also what is it like now? I'm trying to excuse me. I'm trying to think. It's a lot more chilled out. No, that's what I will say. Yeah, today it's a lot more relaxed, and it seems to be, I don't know, the general attitude. I mean, at that time, the 80s and the 90s, it seemed to be, there was an abundance, there was a lot more, there was a lot more openings, and there was a lot, you could do more. There was a lot more potential as well, to actually do stuff. Where today, it's like, I actually feel sorry for a lot of up and coming musicians, where you can see that that's not going to be their main source of income. they're gonna have to. Hey, if you want to play an instrument, you may have to go out and find a second job. You may have to, and it's
and that's probably, I would say, realistic for almost everybody in the business. I mean, everyone was pretty busy then, touring all the time, and now everyone's got to have 4 gigs. Or a lot of guys, specialized guys, can do their thing, but I mean, Ben, you're working on lots of stuff. You're tour managing this, but you're also doing your thing on the side. Like, I mean, how are you consistently, you're looking at your schedule and you're filling? What's the role of the new tour manager going through right now with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can really only speak for myself and, what we have to deal with here on Rod Stewart, but there's 13 or 12 band members in this band, and we're on a totally different schedule than Rod and the crew. So I think most of these band members have been doing this for a while and, come from the rock and roll era, where now they're kind of, they're still enjoying what they're doing, but it's not as, what's the word I'm looking for? You guys clearly aren't partying as hard as you used to. And no. But you're still loving every minute of it.
Yeah.
I think for me, the role of the tour manager, at least on this gig, is really being capable of using the internet to our power.
Yeah.
Everybody, I'd say about half the band has gotten the flu within the last week, and finding different doctors in different cities all really comes down to your capabilities of quickly finding doctors in different cities through the internet, or using Google Maps to our advantage, and using TripAdvisor and all these different websites to try and find different hotels within our budget that really aren't on the beaten path, but might have the potential to be the new hotels that we always stay at when we're in Liverpool or when we're in Munich. So I think, obviously, keeping everybody up to speed with what's going on and making sure that our movements are as efficient as possible to get everybody the most amount of rest, because we are on a decently rigorous schedule.
You've got your own personal, I don't want to say agenda when you're touring, but there is, like, how are you, one of the things I'm trying to focus on this particular part of the music cast is how we're staying fit on tour. So it's changed from, that first time you went out on tour of like, let's just lose our minds and let's go and have some fun.
Yeah.
But we're moving into an era now where bands are doing full workout regimes, bands are doing all the rest of it. What's a Dave Palmer must have to have you function through and push through to be able to do these shows, get through the flu, still play sick, do the rest of it? But how what's your plan to stay fit out here?
Okay. So when I'm at home, I work out 3 times a week with the 3 of my friends. One of my friends is an actor, and many years ago, he studied for a part to be an SAS guy. So he actually went and did the full SAS training with what they do. So what we do, we drive to. I live in LA. We drive to UCLA, to the Royce grounds at about 6 a.m. We run a mile. Then we do 10 sets, 5 chin-ups, 15 push-ups, 20 air squats 10 times. Then we run another mile after that around the track. That's 4 times around the track. Or we'll run the bleachers, up and down the bleachers. And that's my regime there. My regime when I'm on the road is the same deal. Is to run a mile and then just do a minor workout. At the moment, I've not been doing that because I've been under the. I'm one of the flu guys. I'm kicking the flu, and I've had it for the last sort of 4 or 5 days. So I'm just taking it easy. And today I'm gonna go to the steam room and try and clean my sinuses out. But I think cardio is really important when you're out on the road. And also, you're right, the days of waking up or, and feeling like, oh man, under the weather or, like hungover and shit like that. I've read that book, You know, I've worn the T-shirt.
You've written that book.
I've written that. Yeah, I've rented the DVD. I've rented the DVD. You know, I know how that film plays out. You know, from right to the end. You know, beginning to end.
It was mandatory for Ben to read that book before he came out.
Yeah,
on everybody. Everyone send your book.
Yeah,
you know.
Thank God I'm out of women's clothing. That is for sure.
Speaking of styling,
excuse me, sorry about that.
Yeah, now we just for the record, it is now December the 9th, and Ben and I just got the flu. We just got the flu from Dave. So
Dave insisted on taking this podcast to his room, the flu-ingested room.
But hey, good thing we're working out on tour, Ben, because here we are.
Hey, is it feeling swampy? It
feels great in here.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
good.
I feel very cool.
Okay, cool.
The style-wise, so you're talking about that. So you're still a stylish guy, Dave. Are you still wearing the same clothes from back then?
Yeah.
What was happening, from the 80s to now? You got a little bit of a new look, because I saw some of those videos, and it's it's looking good.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, you're right. Yeah, ABC wore suits, and but we did wear gold lame suits. And I was quite happy after that tour finished to take it outside and throw it in a trash can and burn it, tin foil, it was like, it's gold lame suits, yeah.
Where's the, is there a spot for you, and I like to ask this of anybody that's, and this is for you too, Ben, which you're still working towards your journey, you're tour managing, and you're going to keep achieving things, and Dave, I think we all just keep achieving. If we're in it long enough, we keep going after new things, right? I wanted to do Wembley. I got Wembley. I wanted to do, to go to this city. I've been to that city. There's just these little tiny things that we set out for. Where was the moment for you where you said, there it is? I'm making it. I don't like using that term, making it, but where was that moment for you where you'd put the hard work in and either your calendar's so jammed you can't do anything else. You're so in demand that everyone, you can't keep up to it, or you just feel like you've entered that level of respect where pretty much you're set for the rest of your life now. Yeah. Outside of selling 300,000 records and actually, being able to make money on record sales, it's more like, when were you the most comfortable in your own skin through that journey?
I think possibly for me was, I think it was when I'd gotten back from Japan, I think, for the first time, and then I started doing sessions for people like Steve Lillywhite and people in London were starting to, because obviously they'd heard me play on Lexicon of Love, and and it was like, and I started getting being booked for hey, for me as a player. Hey, let's get David in, and I wasn't living in London at the time. I was still living at that time in Sheffield. So I'd get on the train and go down there and do sessions for people. And I suppose that's when it started feeling, when I started working with the as well. And, I think the album Mind Bomb was a real turning point for me. When people heard Mind Bomb, it kind of fucking blew their minds, People hadn't heard shit like that before, and it was like people were always, I have drummers come up to me even now and go, hey man, we studied that record at Berkeley, School of Music, it's like the album, and that's a real, one of my friends actually, Stacey Jones, he's Miley Cyrus's musical director. And he's also a terrific drummer. Him and Abel Boreal Jr., they both studied that album. It's one of their favorite records. So it's like, that's a compliment. And that's when I feel like, as far as creativity was concerned, I think that period of the 90s and into the 2000s was just like a really wild period, because people were just getting into electronics, man. We were just finding, there were samples. We were using drum samples on that album, on Mind Bomb. So the drums were all bolstered with drum samples, but they didn't have samplers, so they were using AMSs or primitive real machines. But it's kind of cool. So I think that's when music started really changing around that period. Sounds were different. You were hearing different things. You were hearing technology was kicking in. Frankie Goes to Hollywood was kicking in, and bands like that, when you were going, wow, a New Order were doing, stuff which was completely unique and very electronic, and hybrid,
What were you listening to then? Are you a fan? Were you more of a
Everything.
modern? Were you a modern?
Yeah,
Are you a modern music fan now?
I was listening, but I would also listen a lot. I'd listen a lot to all sorts of stuff: jazz, pop, rock. It's really weird for me. The bands, what I listened to around that time, I'm trying to think, was obviously contemporary stuff, and cool. Massive Attack was a huge influence around that time as well. When they came out, they just turned it up. The Bristol scene turned the thing upside down, So there was all these, there was movements in England. There was like these collectives and movements. Massive Attack was really a big part of the, you got that, and then you've got then of course all the music from America as well. There's some great music coming out of America, or was there? I'm not sure.
People would debate that. People would debate any time frame. Everyone thinks they grew up in the best time of music.
I definitely think that when Nirvana kicked in 93, that was a movement, that was a change, that was like it was needed. It was much needed.
It's amazing when those moments kind of hit.
Something it's I think it's good when things come out and it's reactionary, because it's against, they were the antithesis of corporate rock. And I think music was getting very corporate at that time, and the corporations were really starting to take over. And I think they were the kind of Seattle scene just turned out upside down. Sub Pop kind of was the big,
Ben, you came through sort of your world a bit sort of after that. Were you what's your kind of favorite music that you're listening to at that time, or what's bringing you through your journey to becoming a tour manager? Because we all kind of start in music, right? Like I started in music. Dave, I talked to you a bit earlier about Dimebag Darrell from Pantera, and sort of like I just did an episode on him, his tragic passing, but just sort of like how important that time in music played in my journey, out of the 80s into the 90s, and sort of like the different changes in music. Ben, so as Dave has sort of walked through his, journey through America and some of these different bands out of the UK that were influencing him, does the same thing apply to you? Do you start somewhere? Is there a band for you where you're like, oh, wait a minute, and then you decide, I'm doing it because of this kind of thing?
Yeah, doing it just kind of fell in place. But the first music that I was really introduced to was, my mom was a big Dixie Chicks and Luther Vandross fan, two totally opposite ends of the spectrum. But that's what was always in the car when I was getting picked up to go to school or getting dropped off. That's what we were listening to. And there was a few other records in there, of course. But it was the first real record that I remember kind of picking on my own, beyond the Beach Boys and everything that my parents were listening to when I must have been 10 or 11, was The Real Slim Shady by Eminem, when I was living in Seattle. We were living in Seattle my mom was having cancer treatment, so we were living in a hotel. And anything that had a parental advisory sticker on it or rated R was definitely not, I was not allowed to listen to it. But the hotel receptionist, it's funny, I spent 8 months in a hotel that year, and now I'm doing it again, being a tour manager. But the receptionist in the lobby used to rip me CDs. And the first CD I had was The Real Slim Shady. So it kind of opened up this, kind of, I guess, a rebel in me. And I was always playing instruments, but I really started getting into urban music and hip hop. And then fast forward a few years later, I'm buying Tupac records and really just very fascinated by hip hop music while still listening to everything else.
And Eminem started a movement just on his own too. I mean, coming out of that moment of hip hop needed a change as well.
Yeah.
And
it was insane.
Did you guys get much of hip hop over here?
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. I was living in America when he came out. That was the thing. I'd already moved. I'd moved to New York '91, so I was already in America when he started hitting, hard. So he was like great. I was also, I've got to tell you, there was one night we were at, a club. I'm trying to think of the name of it now. It was off the West Side Highway, and it used to be a roller skating rink. And then they'd close it and they'd open it up as a club. What was it called? I'm trying to think of it. But every Wednesday night, they had this night. And I was there one night with Arthur Baker and Nile Rodgers and a bunch of other people, and we were all hanging. And Nirvana, the DJ was playing Nirvana. And then right after Nirvana, there was like this, freak out, ching, ching, ching. And man, Nile Rodgers turned around, he says, now this is a good record. But what I'm trying to say is the two genres, actually, if it's good music, if it's fucking good music, it kicks, it jumps out of the speakers at you. And the Nirvana track was amazing, and then the Chic track was amazing, and this DJ would mix rock, then he'd play the Clash, Rock the Casbah, and then he'd play another heavy track, and it's like, music's, it's amazing. It has, the genres and stuff are just...
I think that part, not that I'm going to clubs anymore, I don't know last time you went to a club, Ben, but I don't see that crossover happening right now.
No.
The kids are kind of liking everything, but they don't know what they like.
Yeah.
Like there's sort of like, I guess it's healthy from the standpoint of everyone's got kind of everything on their on their phone or on their iPhone or whatever. When I was kind of coming through, it wasn't as collective. Like you were sort of a metal and rock fan. You weren't like a Depeche Mode and New Order fan, even though they're all considered rock sort of now. There was a bit more of a time. I just find it's to that point, it's like you can go to that club and have those genres mix and everyone still loses their mind because it's a good song. I'm wondering if that is the case now. Is it hip for Billie Eilish just admitted she doesn't know who Van Halen is and everyone's freaking out about it. Yeah, and I'm like, well, why would she know who Van Halen is?
She's how old is she?
She's 17 years old. Like why would she know? And she's not going to stand there and when they put on Ain't Talking About Love in a club and she's going to jump up and down and be all excited to hear Van Halen. It's just not going to happen.
Absolutely.
And Billy doesn't seem like the type of person we'd find in a nightclub anyways.
No, but I'm talking, but it's just like, there's a bit of like thing happening now where that crossover is not happening as much.
I actually, to be perfectly honest with you, I found her music really refreshing. I listened to her albums and and I was like freaked out. I loved it. I liked it because it's sparse, it's really bare, it's really minimal, but it's super effective. And all you do is you just focus on her voice and the sound of her voice and how interesting it is. And I think the combination of her and her brother, I think that's a pretty
And he's getting some great gigs out of it now too. He's producing a lot of stuff.
I did her first two shows in Philly. I had her when she was the first gig. We sold 500 tickets to. That sold out instantaneously. And then the second gig, she did 1,000 tickets and sold out instantaneously. And her brother was in the band for both of those shows. Her mother was pretty much playing the role as the road manager. Yeah. And her father was the LD. It was pretty incredible. Yeah. And I think they're still pretty actively involved.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah.
So, we're winding down. So I know you're recovering from sickness, so I won't keep you too much longer. So, I just one of the things that I wanted to touch on was sort of just that journey through the process, and now you've been playing with Rod since 1990. You've been Rod's guy. Any work that you're most proudest of? I mean, outside of what you touched on with Dada and selling and like anything that you're composing music now too. You're doing some film work and the rest of it. Are you in a great creative zone right now? Are you feeling like you're top of your game?
I am. I'm feeling. I'm actually looking forward to next year. I'm actually looking forward to this. We have a little bit of forced downtime, which is nice. Because I basically me and my wife have just moved home, so I literally. We moved in on Tuesday as I left on the following Monday. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to kind of getting back there and building a studio and getting everything kind of working and having, and recording and doing. I've got a lot of friends who are editors and music editors and film editors, and I'm going to try and get more. I'd really like to try and get more into doing some TV stuff or even film stuff, placements and things like that. That's what I'd like to do next year. That's going to be my main focus at the beginning of the year, really,
Very cool. Okay, last question for you both. David, best part of touring, worst part of touring, and where do you think touring is going in 2020 and beyond? I know it's 3 parts, but...
Okay, I'll do the best part of touring and worst part of touring first. Best part of touring is... I love the playing. I love the 2 hours each night. I love the. To me, it's when you get in that zone. It's safe. It's a safe place. And it's almost like you kind of forget where you're at. It's great. And I love visiting. I love being able to visit interesting places and cities and just I feel really blessed to be able to do this. It's a really it's quite a charmed life, and so it's I feel I'm pretty humbled by it all, and that's the way I've always been. I don't take anything for granted. Worst part about touring is I get slightly homesick these days. I miss my daughter, I miss my wife. I get slightly homesick, and that's pretty much it. That's the only downside of it, really. I can say, it's a job what I chose to do, it's a fantastic job. Now, what was the third?
Where do you see touring going in 2020 and beyond? Yeah. Because a lot of bands are trying to be green, and a lot of bands are trying to tidy it up and try to do stuff. So, I mean, touring is kind of on autopilot for the most part. If you got a great tour manager and production managers and stuff that keep it rolling, but. Do you see a change for the artist?
Yeah, I do. I see a change. There's been a big change, I think, in the artist, and I think. Actually, you must see it, and Ben must see it even more, is that I think if you put a great package together these days of a 2 or a 3 or a co-headline, you've got a very good possibility of it being a good sellout tour. But I think that the idea these days and the fallacy that you can go out there, unless you are a really hot, top 20, top 10 even is. But hey, you know what? I know that there was times when Rihanna and people like that, she was selling mega amounts of albums and couldn't sell an arena out. Could not. She'd have to have people, with it, and that's no disrespect to her. It's just the way it is. I think that it's very, very. That's very different now. I think it's and I suppose it's ticket prices as well, maybe, and not the abundance anymore.
I think to touch on Dave's point, with the way that touring used to be, is you would, as a consumer, they would have to pick whether how much money they're willing to invest into the music economy. Can they afford to buy an album and a ticket? And now that streaming has dramatically reduced how much disposable income is being spent on hard copy albums, does that create more opportunity for fans to buy more tickets? And then we have seen the ticket prices increasing over the last, I don't know how many years. So I think that's what I'm most fascinated about in the future is where is technology and where are these kind of up and coming players going to take the future of touring? What as it when it comes to can you reduce ticket prices at all using different technologies, or can you make touring more efficient or more green or more practical so that there's more money to be made for artists, and instead of them getting price gouged, and maybe that drops the ticket price for consumers a little bit. So that's where I'm excited to see what happens.
And there is a movement to take things in a greener direction, less fuel. So that's a whole other thing that's coming, and that's going to be a challenge in trying to figure out how to do that properly. Sustainability, keeping people engaged, especially with the way the culture is now of people complaining about every single thing. You can go on a fully green tour and someone's going to find a way to complain. So, I think you touched on a point earlier about, giving people a great show, quality, great music. There is this assumption that you can just go out on tour and you're just going to make all the money and go. But I still think that you need to back it up with a great product, and you still need to back it up with great tunes, which is why Billy's selling out everywhere. And some of these acts are either struggling that might have millions and millions of Spotify hits but can't sell a record. You still got to have good quality. And so it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Ben, you're still in the phase of being on tour right now, so it's probably a little fresh for you from a tour management standpoint, but your best and worst of your gig.
The best is definitely making these lifelong friendships and relationships with people like you guys and the rest of the band and some of the crew members that I've become very close with. And same with Dave. Being away from home is probably the hardest part. I've seen a couple different areas of the music business now, and definitely being on the road has been the most rewarding and most fulfilling. There's nothing like it. So I guess the hardest part is being away from home.
Well, you touched on it there where you said, making lifelong friendships and meeting people around the world. And I truly think when you spend the amount of time that we all spend together, you become a family, whether you like it or not. You become, there's going to be, some angers, there's going to be some whatever. You're all going to go through what brothers and sisters and people do on the tour. But I think that the one thing that brings us together is music, and we all can connect on that. So you guys coming and helping me with the podcast, I really appreciate it. It's something creative for me. This is my drum solo every night, every week, and trying to figure out how to, how to create something every single week. But I want to educate people a bit on what we do and how we're trying to get out there. So hopefully we can do this again down the road. On around episode 100 or something, and we'll get updates on everybody. And Ben, I know you're working on something extremely exciting. I can't wait to break out and talk about, but we'll leave it in the can for now. For you listeners, you're just gonna have to stand by until it comes out.
Exactly. I kind of know about it. It's exciting, man.
It's a bit exciting. Well, you're the godfather, right? You're the don of this. You're watching this, that's right. He's going from there. So I'll let you get to it. You go get some rest. Go run some steps first. And Ben, you already did the gym, so I think you're covered on this sickness. Appreciate your time, gentlemen, and we'll see you on stage.
Thank you.
All right, boys. Take care.
You can always get more music talk with me, Todd Hancock, and the Toddcast podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and in our latest podcast, we look back at 2019. You'll hear highlights from conversations with Steel Panther drummer Styx Adenia, Corey, I Wear My Sunglasses at Night Hart, Hailstorm singer Lizzie Hale, Godsmack singer Sully Erna, the Ramones' CJ Ramone, Todd Kearns, and a bunch more like Nickelback singer Chad Kruger. Here he talks about songwriting and if it gets easier over the years.
Well, now because we've got 9 albums under the belt, we have to be incredibly cognizant of not sounding like something else we've done, but still sounding like us.
The Brenton on Tour Music Cast is brought to you by the Toddcast podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Find everything at Toddcast Podcast. And you can hear the podcast, full interviews, and a bunch more through toddhancock.ca. We'll see you soon.